Hello friends. So today let us talk about screen planning. So what is screen planning? Earlier we have seen about the orientation, about the designing. Later part we studied about software engineering and usability related to HCI like human computer interface or human machine interface. Now we'll study related to screen planning, that how the things are arranged or what are the basic things that we need to study when we arrange or when we make a user interface. If we make a user interface, sometimes we confused with the WIMP or many items present on a screen, and it leads to some chaotic form or kind of confusion environment. So to reduce this, to understand this, there is no such basic principle to follow how to design a screen, what to put, what are the contents. It is absolutely depends on designer, that what the designer wants, how the interface should look or the appearance should be made. But it also depends on certain things, that for whom the interface or the interactive design is prepared, the first thing. And second things, any users, if the interactive design is for all the users, is any users is able to use it, interact with it comfortably, or it is something again the confusion one. So let us study about the screen design and the layout. So earlier we have talked about the ordering of the system, that how the order is maintained. Now we'll look into like order of the group along with the items. So in general, if we need to think what is the natural order of the user, so user will not look into the ordering of appearance or the order or the sequence of the screen. The first thing. Second thing, the frequency of the use. These two is related to the end user part. But when we design a system, when we design an interactive system, what we say, what we feel is that how the pages, if I'm talking about the web design, how the pages are arranged, that is the first thing. And second thing is how I present that pages, whether it is in a click previous button or it is like the first news. If you see about your college websites or about uh, MS Mumbai University or Maharashtra State Board of Technical Education, whatever board you see, whatever web design of these universities or these colleges you see, the first is the home page. Later comes about academics, the admission process, the faculty, and so on. But initially, if there is a notification, the notification sometimes depends on upon the link which they provide, or it's sometimes hidden somewhere. So you need to search where is the notification link, or sometimes it's given into the display itself in the home itself, where you can find, oh, this is a notification, this is a notification I'm looking about. So that means what is the natural order of the user? It is uncertainty. User definitely will not follow the chronological order. When whatever the user work has, if suppose a user work has in a page 2, the user will not follow on page 1 and followed by page 2. If there is a multiple links, it will click on the particular link and will access the page, but it will not follow any chronological order. So this should normally match the order on the screen. This is what I said. If those things are present, are ordered in the link wise, if the link is provided into some name form, into a label form, or into form of command button, and this synchronous, they are arranged in a sequentially. Now what happens if the order in the label or then according to the name they are arranged, the user will click on those things with whatever the user wants. But sometimes user may not necessarily will go and find out, oh, this is the button I need to click it, this is the thing I need, I'm not able to find it where it is, I'm just browsing those pages and I'm wasting my time. Later I put some negative comments, and we are not sure about these things. Now, what happens is, for any data entry form or a dialog box, we should also set up the order in which the tab key moves between the field. How many of you have used or accessed your keyboard using the tab key instead of your mouse or your trackpad? when I want to use it, when I want to access it, okay, I'm using the keyboard, but normally when I want the focus to be in command button or into the label button or a text button, instead of using a keyboard, I can use a tab key. Now, how the tab key is provided? How the tab key is used? Like press the tab key, the focus comes, press the enter. That means that's that bar, that title bar, or your menu bar, or your file menu, or whatever selection item you want. Just press the tab key. It's because the tab is also set, is also featured in chronological order. It is not, I must not say that it just press one. I mean, it press one, so it will go for the press one. No, I'll say that my command button is press one, my text box is press two, key two, sorry, key number two, and so on. I'll set that tab according to the number, according to the field which the user wants, according to the user. I'll do it. I'll just guess it, or I will just work through my experience. Then the decoration. The other decorative feature like font style and text or a background colors can be used to emphasize grouping. This the decoration part. This can be used in your like how you want to design your pages, web pages, or your interactive system. Because for later, the latter part, you think about your font style, about your text, about your background. That means about your icon, about the colors, about the text, about the words, messages, reads, and so on. You later part you think about it. But first is when actually I'm creating an interactive system, I have to think what sequence I have to do it, what chronological process I am in. So for suppose for the data entry forms or a dialog box, we should also set up the order in which this is quite confusing because when we press on the tab, I don't want feature the tab, I have to press enter, but tabs move from key from my tools, from my buttons, and so on. So there is special feature for the tab in which you can, I mean, that is an enhanced feature that you can label, or you can give the sequence of the moving of your tab. And later part comes the decoration. Okay, now when I talk about the decoration part, I'll still need to think about the alignment. So alignment is very important thing. Again, the alignment is important. See, these things, whatever we are talking about in a screen design and a layout, is about your screen planning. Because when you decide to, or when you talk about the screen elements, what are the screen elements, how they are arranged, that is to be decided. And so these things like order of group items, your decorations, your alignment, white space, and so on, all these matters much because your first is about your appearance. If your web page or your home page looks really bad or a shabby from outside, user will user will not go into the detail part because user wants to feel the wow, this is so interesting. Even your text, your content should match accordingly. Whatever decoration part or whatever part you have designed up till now, along with the consistency of your texting, your words, your sentences, along with your colors, icons that we'll see in the upcoming sessions, all these things, when you put it together, the user should be pleased to see. Wow. The first thing, it should like appreciating your website. Wow, this is something we want. Because whenever we like I have not developed, but actually I've installed one app, and I found it that app was very, confusion sort of, or it was very jugglery. I couldn't find anything what I wanted. Later on, I put in some negative comment and I uninstall it. So if this is the way that user can treat. That means the entire thing, whatever you have created, is in when. Now, white space. Okay, now let's talk about the alignment. So what alignment I'm talking about? Now, alignment of list, like for user to read text from left to right, or right to a list of text items should normally be aligned to the left. So right now, when you make your report, like what you make your report in your present Word form, correct? And later you convert into the PDF form. So when you make your report, when you make your project report, when you create your black book, you start documenting it. You choose your words very accurately, not accurately, but when you choose your words, you think of it, you think of other vocabularies to be used, or you want to then you think of the alignment, the font, the text size, the headers, and so on. All these elements are put together, and how they're aligned left or in the center or in the middle, whatever I'm talking about. So it depends upon the format which has been issued to you. So it's accordingly. Now when you want to create some text, when you want to write the text, you make sure that you align your text from the left side, because it's from the left to right we read. The numbers, however, should normally be aligned to the right for integers or at the decimal point. So what happens is that numbers, we can write like number 1 alignment, 1.1 left alignment, 1.2 right alignment, 1.3. So the way you numberize or categorize those numbers sequentially, you put like the one header part, accordingly subheading or the subtopics part is 1. Again there are subtopics, so it's 1.1.2, 1.1.3. Like you, when you make your project reports, that time you find, oh, this is so confusing, and so on. Now next is about your white space. The white space is like in painting, so it is a canvas form. In painting, this is also important. An artist may focus as much as the space between the foreground elements such as figures and buildings on as on the elements themselves. So that means currently I'm talking about the white space, like it's about the canvas painting. Now there, I have a lots of, like, canvas. If you see, if you found of a painting of a very need to do painting, what you think, what you do, you buy the canvas, you buy certain paint brush. Depends on your sizes, then the colors, the what colors you need, what type of colors you need, watercolor, oil color, poster color, and so on. Crayons or sketch pen, pencil, color pencil, and so on, so on. So what happens is when you start drawing it, when you start painting, when you make something new, your entire white thing, your canvas is filled with all the colors. So that means the figures and the buildings on as on the elements themselves. If I talk about in a computer screen, my interactive system is currently filled up with the elements, not the figures and the building, but as on I'm talking about the elements. The elements are completely on my screen. So my white space has been filled out. But now when I talk about the white space has been filled out, later, how do I arrange them? Should I arrange like randomly throwing out my elements, like one element to my bottom right bottom right, one is my left top down, and so on? Is this a way to arrange my elements, or no? I cannot do that. First, I have to draw this. I have to make a rough sketch of the layout, then I'll go on the screen to do it. Now, if one ignores, now this is about the elements. The second is about your content. See, the elements and the contents go side by side, hand in hand. If your elements are too good to arrange on the screen, that looks so pleasing, but your content are so rude or so displeasing that the user will find that this is so boring and will come out from your site or come out from your logged off from the interactive system. So what happens is when you design your content, when you think of the contents of a screen, and instead of concentrate on the counter, the space between the elements, the one can get an overall feel for the layout. That means the space, the uh, elements, the space between the two elements, the contents and the elements together. The white space is still left out, but it should look a pleasing one, not necessary. In case if your white space is being seen by the user, no worries, because later we think of, wow, it looks so pleasing, it looks so uh, good enough that all the users, like different users, are viewing your screen or down installing your app, or it's looking about your interactive system. Then user action and control. This is one thing when the user think about that how we need to interact with the system, like user action. So how the user action is captured. Now entering information. Now in each case, the screen consists not only of information presented to the user but also the places for the user to enter the information or the select option. Yes, because this normally happens. When can we see these things? We can see these things. It's like I have got a space. I have got my text area, that is my label area or my the multi-text area. My text area is big enough to write certain information, to draft certain information, but I have made an option that user can select my options. And this actually, I have provided those alternatives. That means my screen consists of not only the information presented, it is not about a static way, but an interactive way, a dynamic way, an active way to control my environment. And how do I implement this? By putting all your information, by allowing user to enter the information or to select the option in the way they can interact my system. Nowadays, the apps. Now, if I talk about the apps, those application when I install it, when I download it, what happens is first they ask me to sign in. There are three ways to sign in. Prefer one way. O- Later, when the app gets open, what do I find? I find that okay, this is my home, this is my account, this is the things that are available, this is the way I can pay my money to have a member of this and so on. So if I become a library, I want to become a member of this library. Suppose like books, online books, I mean they are the application made of online books, right? I made an account. I sign in. I paid a certain amount for membership. Okay, now what do I expect? I expect to get a book, correct? I'll browse a book for what type of books I want. Do I want literature, fiction, non-fiction, engineering, medical, and so on? What kind of books I want to read? And as there are different types of membership available, I chose a minimum membership, minimum members fees to pay, like minimum membership I chose. So for this, there's certain brand new or newly launched or released books they will not provide me because I have been a minimum. I paid a minimum balance to them, a minimum pay sum. So what happens is that to my membership, according to the features of that membership, what I chose, my appearance, my information appearance on the screen is too limited and is too hazy or vaguely written, can't even understand what they have mentioned. So that means it should not be discriminate that if you paid so much amount, this much information is available. If I pay a little higher a price, that means the entire thing is available. No, even if I am a member, I should give all those information. I should have those information about the books, newly released books, about the old books, and so on. So that means what I want to say that my alignment, my controls, the user information should not be vague. It should be produced in such a way that even a new user to a new interactive can manage a newly interactive system. A user should not always ask for helps about asking some family member, oh, please help me, or about downloading or pressing F5, what should I do? What is the next thing? So that means your interactive system is lagging somewhere. Some flaws are being detected. That we are not here to test those things, but we are here to understand that what the information we present, it should be clearly understand to the user. And certain things, some of the layouts issue for data presentation also apply to the fields for data entry. Now, when I want to enter my data, when I want to register for my login form, I found that certain things are missing. Missing means they have not told me clearly that my email ID is compulsory, my date of birth is compulsory, or my name, my name or my last first name, my last name, that it should be all be mandatory. If certain things which are not mandatory, they should provide some asterisk mark. If you see about the gate exam form, when you fill up the gate exam form, just see, or whenever you fill any login form, when you give your credential, you just think, see there is an asterisk mark that all these things are mandatory. So that means you should provide the user with clear things in mind, that what, okay, you want to register yourself, the first thing, then you want to give the password. That means your that user password should be stored in such a way, that means it should have certain alphanumeric characters, it should have a special characters. But did you mention somewhere, did you mention in your text box, below the text box, have you mentioned all those things, that what, how your password should be? No, if you not mention, but when user provides you, that's the interactive system, my system gives an error. So that means there is something lagging off. Actually, many of the layout issues for data presentation also apply to the fields of the data entry. Then, for both presenting and entering information, a clear logical layout is important. So that means my entering my informations, my presenting my informations, I should have that clear logical thing. That means clear layout, what all those credentials are important. If I'm making some payment site, if I'm making some sites which is giving those information or giving some ebooks, but through a payment, so that payment, when I design the information like credentials of credit card and so on, so that should have my logic, I mean the layout, that how a framework, that how it should be made, how the user should work on it. Then, later thing is knowing what to do. That means some elements of a screen are passive, simply giving you the informations, and others are active, expecting you to fill up them or do something to them. This means that whatever I have explained you earlier in the entering information is the same way knowing what to do. That means there are some sites which are very static. They are just help you to browse it. It's like the tourism sites. If you just click on one, say suppose if you want to find about the Europe, well, Europe continent. If you if you want to find certain countries, the information of the countries, like what the country has and so on. The entire information. So that means that those informations are help you to provide that certain information whatever you need, but that doesn't mean that it's a passive one. It is just an sorry, it is an active one. It is just a passive. When if you want to click, like, okay, France, I have clicked, later I want to click Germany, I clicked on Germany, so they are the links that they have provided. By clicking each and every country, I'm just getting out all those information. But how do that system interact with me? No, in any way, that system is a passive. So I want to design the system which is interactive one. That means which a system is able to communicate with. This topic we has been covering up till now. Each and every session I talk about to make an active, interactive way a system, not a passive one. It's not just about a reading. Okay, if you want to provide certain things like download here, please download here. It's like suppose you wrote an article about the education, you wrote an article something about the human machine interface, and later when the students are reading it, when people are reading it, they found very interestingly, and they want to click and they want to find more and more. But those things are in a way passive when they have been written or they have been conducted. But where actually the active one, the interactive one key, okay, if I enter this, what will happen, and so on. So we always try to make, because we want later on, we want the feedback, how the user feel. Is the user able to access it without any fuss, without any irritation, and so on. Because later these things matter. Then you have your appropriate appearance. That means your presentation information. So that means how your information is presented, how the information look or conveyed. Mostly what happens is what your information is conveyed is the way of presenting information on screen depends on the kind of information. That means your text, numbers, maps, tables, research way, results, conclusions, and so on. Then on the technology, whatever the technology is available to present it, like character display, line display, graphics, virtual reality, then statistics, and so on. So that means how your technology is available. Technology, that means a tool is available to present, to show it. So for more complex numerical data, we may be considering scatter graph or histograms or 3D surfaces. So that means if we talk about the complex data, if we talk about the complex one numerical data, we may what we feel is a considering a scatter graphs or histograms, like uh, more complexly we are presenting those data. But for hierarchical system, what do? We have the outlines or organization diagrams. So an advantage when presenting information in an interactive system is that it is easy to allow the user to choose among several representations, thus making it possible to achieve different goals. So that means this column or this article, this presentation information topic is helping me to how to represent my information, my data to the organizations or to the people all over the world. So that means I can use my graphical thing, my graphic thing, I can use like character display or a line drawing or graphics virtual reality to display about the profits for my firm. So I can do it using a technology or some numerical data, or we can use organization diagrams if the organization has any. So that means by presenting information of an interactive system, we have to choose a, a, a tool in such a way that a common man can understand that representation. Because certain things sometimes people find it difficult to understand the profit of the loss or the goods, the amount of goods sold and so on, like profit if I want to show the profit. So sometimes I fail to fail to explain those numerical data with the help of the graphs. So, with the help of the organization diagrams or the outlines, I cannot able to represent, but I have all these things available. And nowadays, whatever tool you choose, just you need to fill up the data. You need to fill up your X and Y column in such a way so that automatically the tool helps you to generate those graphs. That means you don't have to work, like you don't have to create your own graphs and so on. Then next is statistics and utility. Yes, that means you're pleasing one, that how do you make an interactive system? Does your interactive system looks more pleasing, more attractive, or it looks so worse, or it looks so absurd? So that means with a well-designed item, an interface should be artistically pleasing. So that means a good graphic design and attractive display can increase user satisfaction and improve the productivity. That means what things I have to think of, like well designed items and interface. What I'm talking about currently, what I think about, like pleasing, artistically pleasing, that means a good graphic design and attractive display. Because in the end, I want my user to stay, not to leave away my page so soon. That means it can increase the user satisfaction, improving productivity. The result of inconsistency in appearance may look a mess, sorry, and suggest tidying up. So that means the result is inconsistency. If I took about, or if I think about making my web page some all confusing things are put together, and it's a chaotic way. Do I? And it's look amiss, may look amiss, and suggest, and people will leave me comment that please choose, like, please keep things, I mean, keep to your things, proper things. Please think about the contents, anything, if there is an inconsistency to my web page, and later it will cause me problem. That means no one will come to my web page, no one will read my page, and they will leave me a certain negative commands. So that means in the end, I have to work for the aesthetics, like pleasing components about my elements, about my contents, about my colors, text, and so on. For example, there may be a mix of telephone style and a calculator style numeric. Now, if there is a telephonic style keypads and a calculator style keypads, there is a mix, or there is a mixed one, or the combined one. I can use these things together, and I'll just see that how people are using it, how the users find it, whether the users are still comfortable with those things, or they are still dwelling using the typical keyboard and so on. Now, the conflict between the aesthetics and utility can always be seen in many well-designed posters and multimedia systems. So normally these conflicts can be seen in a well-designed posters in everywhere, in your design, in your multimedia, in your graphical system, and everywhere you can see. Now, if you see about the movies like the dinosaurs one, you see from the first part how it was made. When you think about, when you just saw the second part, the third part, each time what you saw, the enhanced versions of the graphics, the enhanced versions of the multimedia they have used, the sound, the effects, the cinematography, and so on. So these things matter. So I'm not talking about the movie, but when you talk about those multimedia, because these later on your human machine interaction or human computer interaction leads to ultimately leads to your multimedia or your graphics design. How you design your graphics, how you code your system, how you design uh, a poster in a very animated form, so that the small children, a small kid can get attract to it in a very pleasing manner. So you think of it, you think of the cartoon, you think of the cartoon characters, the environments, and so on. Then the statistical graph. So as discussed about the statistical graph, we talk about, we uh, we saw that how this they can provide the informations. The statistical graph is like a data represented in a graphical format. So when I want my firm, my company to look into figures, the statistics, like whether my company has a profit, what loss I suffered, how much profit my company has earned into, and so on. So that means how my data is represented in a statistical way. So that means it can be referred as a chart or a graph. And as I told you that nowadays you don't require to make yourself a graph. What you do is you just give the x and y range of values, and you just click on the graph. What the graph you choose, is it a line graph or you know a pie chart or histograms and so on, different types of graph you select, and accordingly the result will show to you. But then again, if you show the statistical graph, suppose you choose an histogram, but you have to choose in such a way that every individual in your office, in your firm, should understand the the way of represented those items, the figures normally. I'm not talking about the words about anything, but the figures you represent. So that means it can also be referred as a chart or a graph. So use of your statistical graph. What is the use of the statistical graph? If I talk about, it's a use like present data. If I want to show my data, emphasis on the data, like 10%. Like what is the 10%? The 10% order has been placed, or 10% or loss has been incurred, and so on. What I want to focus on my data. Emphasis that on the data is my focus on my data. Then minimizes redundant data. My data is now this is redundant data. The redundant word I hope you got from your database. Now you talk about redundancy. The same thing information keep on repeating, so it's better that it repeat only once. All the information related to that data is being removed, is incurred. Then fill the graphics available area on the data, show data variation, and provide proper context for data representation. Then show scales and shading. That means how does it work? It works according to your graphical system. So that means it depends that it can show you that employee and revenue for different quarter for different years, and then you think about creative or making an innovative way in such a way that all your company, all your for all your people, employed people will think about increasing the revenue and so on. So this is one topic, one thing I represented. You can use your graphics in many ways. Normally you can use a graphic in a project to show, to comparing about the results, about the loss and so on. Visually pleasing components. Now visually pleasing components refers to the attractions of the user of the system. So that means they are the style concerns are often taken into consideration to produce visually pleasing. So that means my first is the balance. So balance in what? Create screen balance by providing associate equal weights to the screen parts from left and right, high and bottom. So that means if I use a rectangle, I can use a rectangle to both the sides from my left and right. But if I want to use a rectangle only one side, so I'll choose which side to use, and all my information, all my diagrams, all my layout should look pleasing, because in the end the pleasing comes into the picture. As we talk about the balance, now symmetry. So create symmetry by replicating parts like left and right of the screen line. Then regularity. Regularity is create regularity by establishing common faces and symmetrically spaced horizontally and vertical alignment points. Then you have predictability. That means you derive with a conclusion by being a consistent and follow some standard guidelines. Then organizing screen elements. So again, this is how to put all your things I mean how you create, how to make your layout which is a pleasing one, and to move into or to take into the consistency. Because things is we talk about, I mean we think about your consistency, about your pleasing statistics and utility, whatever we have learned in our previous topics, all things will club together. So we have is organizing our screen elements. That means visual clarity is attained the presentation of your components. So screen components ought to be watched for the same meeting for all parts of an interface screen. That means when I talk about my interface screen, it should provide uh, this example can be related to you during your class when you have your display like LCD display. When you talk, when your professor, when your teacher gives your presentation onto the display, and when you look into the display, so that means you just see that how the contents are written, how the presentation slides are made. Now suppose right now talk about my slide. Okay, so my slide shows the organizing screen elements. The title is in red color. Okay, so that is my heading. Later You cannot see any components or any elements that I have arranged or have figured out, or they are not so confusing. What the thing matters is just my contents. So what is this for? This is for to explain the students. The contents what I have prepared is to explain the students. So this is a very simple slide, a simple presentation. But when you talk about your some graphical presentation, uh, some interactive system when you create, you need to think about your visual clarity, about the presentation components are composed and how they are produced in genuine and in justified manner. So that means it includes your operational and navigational technology. This means it has your operational, that means your functional, about your navigation, that means how you proceed using your left or right move commands like the navigation of pages, or about your navigations or from top to down navigation of keys and so on. Then visual character or a topic, which topic I'm talking about, or which character is being mentioned, like if any cartoon character is mentioned, so which character. Then there are components. I have certain components and they are organized in a components that are followed by organization, presentation, usage and location. So that means it defines about your organizing your screen elements. Then you have your ordering of screen and data. So that means all your information should be a logically true and should be meaningful and sensible. Something absurd where you sorry some absurd way, if you present your information or in a logical way, in a meaningful way, if you present and it's something reliable, I can say that people will read out your contents. But if something unnecessary information you provide, I'm sorry, people just going to get away from it. Then organized by the degree of interrelationship between the data and information. Sometimes people get confused between data or information. What happens is since we are the students of a technical background, we understand what is my data, what is my information. But since the people are of not this background, they find that data and information are the same thing, or they are inter really has some interrelationship between them. Then provide an ordering of the sequence screen units of information and and elements that is prioritized according to the user expectations and needs. Say whatever we do, whatever we build our information, I'm sorry, whatever information I build, whatever information we build, it's according to the user data, according to the user expectations, user needs. What I'm doing is according to the user, not my needs. Okay, if I'm the user, I'm the developer, so I will think according to the user needs. I will convey my entire work through the user needs, because in what matter the user's expectations and the user wants or the needs, and user needs changes from time to time, so obviously they could be the changes. Then form groups that cover all possibilities. I have to cover up all the things which might be important for me, which I think the user might important, but user can overlook those content. Now ensure that information that must be compared is visible at the same time. The information which I have presented, which I have written today, is very much important. But late after 5 years, that will be discontinued. That the information could be just a trash. So I have to keep updating my information. I have to keep updating my site, my interactive systems. Every time I have to release some patch. Okay, that is my developing part. That is all my software engineering part. I'm not looking into what I'm looking about my designing, my graphical system, my multimedia system. That how my system is today looking. I mean, how it looks, how does it is beneficial to the users? Because in the end, the user matters much more. So it okay. The ensure that that only information relative to the user task or needs is presented on the screen. This is what I'm talking about. Throughout this presentation, I'm just only talking about the information relative to the user task. It should be nothing like other than the user needs, not some logical thing or some nuisance things is being written and contents are being written or read and so. Then common information ordering schemes include the following. So that means a conventional use, sequence of use, frequency of use, functional importance, general to specific. Then ordering normally reflects a combination of this technique. So information may be organized functionally, but with each function, individual items may be arranged by sequence or importance. So for all these things, we have covered our topic for today for screen planning up till here. So I hope you understood this all these things, because we need, when we prepare an informative system, there are different types of systems available, like an informative system, an interactive system, and so on. So if we want to prepare interactive system, we need to think about how the layouts is done, how the screen elements are arranged, how the text are arranged, what the colors items are are present on the screen, and how does my screen looks, whether it looks pleasing or it's look absent. So for this you can still work more on screen planning. We'll see for the next session. Till then, bye.